to there. He's going to go all the way. 30, 25, 20, 50.
They're on the trajectory right now to make it to a Super Bowl.
This is Hall of Fame. This is Hall of Fame Lamar Jackson right now.
I mean, at the moment, who would you prefer to watch play football? I'm going to say the Ravens and Lamar Jackson every day.
Could be that this player, who was shocked at the beginning of the season, could make a huge difference for this team. There are some fans out there who at that stadium were just hammering Saquon Barkley, booing Saquon Barkley.
Bringing him over to the Eagles, he has just changed and really blossomed into this new athlete.
Bill Belichick, over the last couple of days, being like he should be a Giant. They should have just given him that couple $1 million more. Welcome to talkSPORT's The NFL Rundown, our weekly show where we look back at the biggest, the hottest stories from the weekend's action. And joining me today, NFL analyst Phoebe Schechter. How's it going, Phoebe?
Oh, it's so great. Honestly, I'm so excited. We're week 7, over and done with. I don't even know what's happening. We're coming to halfway through the season. What is this?
I know. This is the beauty and the dreadfulness of the NFL season. It's over like that, isn't it? And I feel like we need to start with Monday Night Football and potentially the team that we should all be talking about at the moment anyway, the Baltimore Ravens. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 41-31 on Monday Night Football. Lamar Jackson, Phoebe. I don't even know whether to ask you a question or just to say the person's name. Lamar Jackson, Phoebe. I mean, what a ridiculous performance.
He is phenomenal. I mean, from the way that he's throwing the ball right now to how he's moving in the pocket. I mean, I know early on he got sacked a couple of times. He had so much time in the pocket, but he kind of switched it on after that and just literally took off, whether using his legs, getting the ball on Derrick Henry, who we love that they brought him in. They've been able to seal multiple games with Derrick Henry, Rashad Bateman. I mean, Zay Flowers, all of them had an active role in this incredible defeat.
Where does Lamar Jackson rank in terms of quarterbacks this season so far, Phoebe?
I think that he's on an MVP year. I mean, look, he won MVP last year. He's already done it twice. He potentially, if he could keep this up, he could be a 3-time MVP. And honestly, they're on the trajectory right now to make it to a Super Bowl. And imagine a Ravens versus maybe a Lions Super Bowl, a repeat in the New Orleans Dome of when they had the blackout game. I mean, I feel like history's already set.
I feel like with Lamar Jackson as well is that, you know, you mentioned there it could be a three-peat when it comes to, MVP. This is Hall of Fame. This is Hall of Fame Lamar Jackson right now. I think the only thing that is stopping him from maybe being in that discussion right now is that postseason play, that Super Bowl. If he gets a ring, if he gets a Super Bowl ring this year, if he gets an MVP this year, retire, mate. You're in the MVP conversation. Do you know what I'm saying?
He's too much of a competitor. He would not retire. But I hear what you're saying. I think that he is phenomenal, right? What he's done for the game, the way that he is finding ways to win. You know, early on, when he first came into the league, they were trying to get him to play at running back, trying to get him to be a full-time runner. And now, you know, he's lost a bit of weight this year. His speed, you can see that. His evasiveness. I mean, some of his design QB runs, but some of his like read options where he just takes off. I mean, you cannot stop him, and he's juking people. We've seen him stiff arm people only a couple weeks ago against the 49ers. Like, he's just someone who is really next level. And his operation, we saw last week, they forced him to throw the ball, and he answered every question they gave him. And then the Bucs, a game that was coming in as being highly touted as this high offensive game, which it was, they struggled at first, but he literally just took off and they never looked back. And that's been something that we've talked about a bunch with him is in the fourth quarter, can the Ravens maintain that? Now they let the Bucs in a little bit, but actually it was really impressive to see what they were able to do.
And you know what? This is something that we are guilty, well, I'm guilty of. I'm going to say that you're guilty of it as well, Phoebe.
Sure.
Every single year.
Guilty by association.
We are so guilty, though, of overanalyzing the first couple weeks of the season, aren't we? The Baltimore Ravens, they lost that tight encounter against the Kansas City Chiefs to start the season. They go 0-2. 0-2. Ravens' season is done. They have no hope of anything. Well, they've just gone on a winning streak. And now, potentially, they might be the top or really close to the top of the power rankings right now, Phoebe.
They are at the top. I think they are at the top of the power rankings, right? Because of what they're doing offensively. There are some great special teams returns in that game. You know, we talk so much about complete football and how important that is. And then Defensively, I still feel like they have moments, right? The Bucs were able to run on them. Rashad White had a great game against them. So I still think there's some elements in the run defense that they have to work on, but you've got Marlon Humphrey out there. They get 2 interceptions against Baker Mayfield. I just think that they are building in the right way. And we saw it last year with the Chiefs, where they struggled at first, but when it came to postseason, that's where they really answered those questions. And I think when you look back to game 1 for the Ravens, the criticism about them in the postseason, they went away from the run game. They went away from their identity. They did that a little bit in week 1 versus the Chiefs, right? And when you play the Chiefs, they force you to almost feel like, oh gosh, we can't do what we normally do here because of who they are. But they've reestablished themselves, and their identity is run the ball, whether it's Lamar or Derrick Henry, and then get the ball to your pass catchers when it's appropriate.
Well, look, I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs briefly, only because they are now the only undefeated team in the NFL. Let's just use this stat, right? Patrick Mahomes has thrown 6 touchdowns this year for the Kansas City Chiefs. Lamar Jackson had 5 on Monday Night Football. Are they right now, the Baltimore Ravens, better than the Kansas City Chiefs?
I think they are. And I think they're more fun to watch. I mean, at the moment, who would you prefer to watch play football? I'm going to say the Ravens and Lamar Jackson every day. The Chiefs are still struggling on offense. Now, we saw the game they had over the weekend, and they were better. Don't get me wrong. You saw some of that Mahomes magic that we talk about so much, whether it was, a nice little pass to Travis Kelce when he's rolling out and throws it back inside. You do a bit of kind of the trickeration they love, those gadget plays they love to run. But Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are the complete package for me. And if they can keep building and they can stay healthy, right, that's the biggest thing. The Chiefs are not healthy. And this could be a totally different conversation if they had Rashee Rice, if they had Hollywood Brown, if they have all these players that they're suddenly losing. Maybe we would be saying Chiefs are above them, but right now, Ravens are above them.
Okay, well, we spoke to Ravens legend Ray Lewis about the start to their season and how impressed he's been with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson.
I'm telling you, I think the Ravens, with Derrick Henry coming there and what Lamar is doing now, I think Lamar is now, he's really starting to mature into what makes him really special. Athleticism, that's easy. He's the most athletic thing we've ever seen ever play this game. But when you talk about just maturity, I think he's starting to mature into it, it's becoming poetic to watch. So I'm looking forward to it.
I've got to say as well, Phoebe, sometimes when there's matches made in heaven as well that you can kind of anticipate, oh yeah, that would probably work quite well. And then a lot of the times a player joins a team and it doesn't quite work. King Henry, man. I mean, he joins the Baltimore Ravens and people were sort of saying as well at points, he's starting slowly and then he just busts out an 80-yard run. He's the type of player who, despite being this workhorse of a player, really seems to manage to crack on every single game. And he's the type of player that if the Ravens are going to be serious contenders later on this year in the postseason, they need to rely on him.
Yeah, and I think they have to think about how they manage him. Now, he doesn't want to be managed because he just wants to be out there as much as possible. But he is an older player, and what he does, he's so physical and so fast. But you do have to think about, all right, how many reps is he getting a game? Because he is really that guy that's going to punch it in for you, whether you're talking about his toss plays outside that he takes all the way or when you're on the 2-yard line and to punch it into the end zone. He's so physical like that. And even if he just falls forward, he's giving you at least 3 yards due to his actual size. So I think bringing him in is probably one of the best offseason moves that we've seen. And they just complement each other so well. And it challenges a defense because now I have to account for this big guy who is not just physical and fast, but then I've also got to account for Lamar Jackson.
I feel so sorry for defenses just in general. I mean, it's like, right, let's just focus on one of the best rushing quarterbacks of all time and probable, future Hall of Fame running back as well.
It's crazy. And then as a defensive line, I'm thinking, okay, I have to maintain my pass rush lanes all the time because if you let Lamar Jackson out, I mean, there's so many considerations into a game plan to plan for these two. It's mind-blowing. And you just have to decide, all right, what are the hits we're literally willing to take here?
AFC feeling quite strong for me at the moment, actually. There's a few teams there that I really feel like are potential Super Bowl contenders. I mean, I'm assuming that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be on that list for you for obvious reasons. They just seem to just get it done. The Ravens we've spoken about. Are those the 2 top contenders for you in the AFC?
I think they are the 2 top ones. I think we would be wrong to not bring in the Bills in that conversation. I mean, they're 5-2 right now. Josh Allen is phenomenal. You bring in Amari Cooper, you think what that relationship could look like in a couple weeks' time, especially post-bye. The Texans, I mean, they're always an interesting conversation. I mean, the Texans beat the Bills, and I still think they need to be working on their run game. They have some deficiencies they need to focus on, but CJ Stroud is performing like a 10-year vet. And again, we talk so much about when you've got a quarterback who can get things done. I think, you start moving towards the Bengals. Their offense can do it. Defensively, I don't think so. So I'd say those are kind of your top teams to be looking at right now.
Well, I feel like Phoebe is sitting on the fence a little bit. I need to know who is your fauvorite in the AFC right now?
Ravens.
Ravens.
Without a doubt, Ravens.
Let's just really, really quickly touch on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well, because we focused on the Ravens there. And I want to ask you a question to do with them, purely because this was a 41-31 loss, okay, to a good Ravens team, and they're in a winnable NFC South. But I saw one fan on social media say this is the worst loss for a long time, purely because they lost 2 receivers. Season-ending injury for Chris Godwin, who's been their wide receiver 1 this season. Mike Evans out with a hamstring as well. Is this it for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in terms of being Super Bowl contenders? Were they ever Super Bowl contenders?
I don't know if I would have put them at Super Bowl contenders, but I think this is a big loss for them, right? Next week, you're going up against your divisional rival, the Falcons. That's a huge game. You've got the Chiefs after that, 49ers after that. You've got some hard games that you're going to have to play in the next few weeks, and I think they had some really great splashes against the Ravens, right? They started off fast. They scored the touchdown, got the field goal. They started to bring it back in that fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield had some really nice moves. I don't know if you saw it, the Zion McCollum fumble recovery, carrying defenders into the end zone. I mean, you can't say that the drive and determination isn't there. Their defense was playing really well. So I don't think it's the end of the road for them, but I do think this is a huge loss, and they've got till November 5th in terms of the trade deadline, so they might have to look now to see if they can bring in some extra pieces.
Well, we've already spoken about one king in King Henry. What about a future king, as Phoebe Schechter happened to meet Prince William over the last few days with the NFL obviously being in London, Prince William, and to be fair, Phoebe Schechter was teaching a future King of England how to play American football. Was that a big, bucket list moment for you?
That definitely was. My gran would be very proud of me. It was a very cool day, to be honest. We were in Kennington Park in London, and to have him there with all these, we had about 50 school kids. The NFL Foundation put the event on, and it was teaching him about NFL flag, what flag football means with it being an Olympic sport in 2028. And it was great. He went through all the different drills. He was so lovely. I definitely had some moments where I was like, I wish they had like a rule book of what you can or can't do. At one point, I go to high five. I'm like, ooh, can you do this? Is this
fist
allowed?
Bump, mate.
Yeah, fist bump. Just, yeah. Do a little turtle. Got it. But he was phenomenal. I told him, he needs to move his hips like Shakira for evasiveness and flag. And he loved it. And he played. He threw some dimes, but Jason Bell was not letting him throw a touchdown to anybody. Jason Bell went right back in the game and was like, not today.
Phoebe, you are well known for a really good British accent as well. Did you try that with Prince William?
No.
I didn't think you did. I didn't think you would. How was his spiral?
It was honestly really good. Like, he's got a really strong arm, and he was saying that he played on the beach when he was like 15. Him and the family would play some American football, so he had a great skill set. Did some coaching on the technique. He made me look like a stud because I was like, just adjust a couple things. And then he threw an absolute dime, and I was like, that's it. Hire me everywhere, coach.
There were some great photos, to be fair. And you've taught me how to throw an American football as well. So I know you are a great coach, even if it was a long time until I could throw a decent one. Now, this past Sunday, the Jacksonville Jaguars hosted the New England Patriots at Wembley, and the game was introduced by none other than myself.
Hey.
He does our games on talkSPORT 2. Can we have the PA ready to go on this one, please, Wolvani? Because we're about to get from one of our very own, the Duval.
Your favorite players on and off the field. All right, Jay, let's let the world know where...
on, Jay. I thought that was sensational. I'm not going to lie. I told you to put it up because I thought he might screw the pooch. but actually, that was really good.
Hey!
Do you know what? I am absolutely livid at Will Gavin, because I thought initially, I was like, Will Gavin is going to be putting that on talkSPORT 2 because he wants to support me. No, it was quite the opposite, to be honest with you there. It sounded like he just wanted me to embarrass myself.
Oh, no. I mean, that was phenomenal. I mean, what does that mean to you to get an opportunity like that?
Oh, do you know what? It was actually really fun. I was very nervous that my voice was going to crack, to be honest with you, because they literally say to you, like, grab the microphone, put it as close as you can to your mouth, and do it as loud as you can. So I was a little bit nervous that, like, halfway through you're going to get something like that. Thankfully, it didn't matter. The Jacksonville Jaguars, though, they closed out the NFL games here in London, didn't they, Phoebe? With that victory against the New England Patriots. And it's so nice to have the NFL in the UK. I feel like I'm mourning the loss of them going, to be honest with you. And a great last game as well for the Jacksonville Jaguars to just show that offensively they can play good football.
Yeah, they really needed that, right? I mean, there's been a lot of pressure on Doug Peterson and the Jags, especially coming out to London. They lose that first game against the Bears, and this was huge for them. They talked about last year how much it was good for them in terms of bonding, bringing the team together. The energies changed whilst they were over here. And then to have that win was just phenomenal. I think it let Doug Peterson breathe a little bit. You know, all the news about, hey, three coaches been fired after London before. You know that's naturally sitting on his shoulder. So, no, and it was kicked off by your beautiful voice.
Well, do you know what? Some people have said it was a highlight of the game.
I have heard that.
Mostly my mother, to be honest with you. Jags wide receiver Parker Washington had the moment of the Wembley game this Sunday besides the first Duval. And here's how it sounded on the end zone watch-along.
Huge booming punt all the way down to the 4 for Parker Washington, but he gets out to the 10, to the 15, he's got blockers, 25, 30, 40, 50, it's only the punter there, he's going to go all the way, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown Jacksonville as he stops at the end zone, falls backwards into it, and that's a huge, huge play in terms of the momentum of this game. Parker Washington taking it all the way from the 4-yard line, 96 yards for the Jacksonville Jaguars touchdown. Huge Christian Scotland-Williamson.
Special teams matters.
I mean, just how much we've worked on a return and how much time we take throughout the week to get set up a return like that. Huge block by Jarron Jones as well, getting across him. I mean, that set up the play for the touchdown. So, I mean, just special teams making an impact is what we have to do every game if we want to win. So it's cool to see that.
I mean, it was great. You know, Coach, he did a great job of prepping us well and saying that, you know, one of these days, one of these games that, you know, one of the big returns is going to happen. And today is that day. You know, I'm happy for everybody. You know, everybody on that unit did a great job blocking, and Parker seen the crease and hitting. So we always happy and excited for him.
That was major. It happened so fast, my head wasn't even up at first. I just heard everybody start roaring, and I looked up. It was Parker. He's running down the field for a touchdown. Obviously, that's major for us. That just shows the chemistry amongst offense, defense, and special team all coming together to contribute to the win.
I mean, that was one of the highlights of probably not actually just that game, to be fair, Phoebe, but probably the whole weekend as well, because that was the longest touchdown in London history as well. So an amazing thing to see. And it's all over. It is all over. The UK games are all over until next year. We speak about this, you know, obviously every single year, the growth of the game here in the UK. Was there anything visible that you saw over the last few games that made you think we are on the right trajectory?
Yeah, and I just want to shout out Heath Farwell, the special teams coordinator for the Jags. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job. He's an ex-player with the Seahawks. We were in Buffalo together. And when he was over here, he put on a special teams clinic for our British coaches. So he took time out of his day to go and coach him up. So it's very cool for them to see that work he does on the field as well as off the field. But I think this game is growing, right? In terms of, that was one of the highest sold out games in terms of Wembley for attendance. Just having 6 different international home markets here, and the first time we've had all 3 playing, right? You're talking about the Vikings, the Bears, the Jags. That's phenomenal. And there's so much interest from these teams to grow and develop the sport. It's just taking off. And, you know, they've said maybe in the future the Jags will have even more home games here for a little bit whilst they're working on their stadium in the States.
Yeah, which is massive, to be fair.
That'd be incredible. And you're really just building that fan base up and people want more opportunities to see this sport. I know we've got Germany as the final international game of the season, but it's great to be in that atmosphere. And I think every game is getting more competitive in terms of the fans they know a lot and they are so passionate about their team. So it's a great opportunity for anybody to go and see an NFL game if you can.
Well, last week on the rundown, myself and Brian T. Smith had a conversation about the potential international Super Bowls, Phoebe, because it was sort of alluded to via the commissioner, sort of not ruling it out. So I'll put you on the spot because Brian did say that he thinks that there could be an international Super Bowl within a decade.
Ooh.
I was like, what are you on about, Brian? What are you on about? What's your opinion? Could there be an international Super Bowl?
I struggle to see that there would be an international Super Bowl.
Full stop?
At least, over a decade. I think what would be more probable would be a Pro Bowl or something like that, because there's so much that goes into a Super Bowl, so much organization, and so much of what they need is in the States that actually, it feels like a lot. And so, yeah, I'm going to say probably not on a Super Bowl, at least for another over a decade, but on a Pro Bowl, I think they could do that. That could be quite fun, to be honest.
Phoebe Schechter, the dampener of
I'm
the week.
sorry.
Right there.
I just got to be honest.
Okay, let's move on to MVP of the week. And actually, this is a really good choice by Phoebe Schechter, I think, this week. Actually, from a losing team this week, but for very good reason. Tell me about it, Phoebe.
Yeah, so I've gone with Ricky Pearsall, and he was the 49ers receiver who was shot literally 50 days before his game on Sunday, whilst someone was trying to rob his watch, and it went through him, but this was his first game. He was a third-round draft pick from the 49ers, and so for him to be out there, first off, he got a standing ovation when he came onto the field from everybody in the stadium, and for him to go out there and be able to get routes to overcome everything he came through, it was phenomenal, and he was targeted multiple times. It wasn't like it was just a trying to make him feel good thing. Like he's a great receiver. Shanahan was talking about how he kept earning his way, so I think that's pretty special.
I feel like it's just mad though when you think about it. You can even just put it in a headline like, player shot weeks ago makes debut for 49ers. That is just mad.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think that no matter what he did this season, it was going to be great. But the fact that he managed to get on the field because this is a 49ers team. We don't need to discuss 49ers too much right now, but this is a 49ers team that have massive aspirations. So it could be that this player, who was shot at the beginning of the season, could make a huge difference for this team.
Yeah, hugely. And sorry, his first-round draft pick, and he'd had shoulder injuries coming into it, but they need receivers right now, right? Debo's unwell with pneumonia. Fluid in his lungs. We saw him at the game, and he did not look okay. Like, he could not breathe. But then you've got so many other injuries.
Brandon Ayuk. Yeah.
Exactly, and it keeps going on and on. Kittle as well, questionable. So you're losing people. Juwan Jennings was out last weekend. The list goes on. But really, Ricky Pearsall, if he can start to get those extra reps this week, he might be that number one receiver. And Shanahan is great at making sure that doesn't matter where you sit, right, on the post in terms of if you're the lowest man on the totem pole, you are coached just as well as your number one receiver. So he'll understand the scheme and be put in a great place to be successful.
Yeah, a really crazy, fascinating few weeks for Ricky Pearsall. Saquon Barkley, though, ooh. Phoebe Schechter. Saquon Barkley, who at the weekend game, the Philadelphia Eagles, his new team against his old team, the New York Giants, he put up the most yards that he has ever put up at MetLife Stadium. That's the team that he used to play for in the home stadium. And it is, you couldn't write it. You couldn't write it, could you?
No. This is what you ask for. And he's been such a great addition. You talk about great moves in the offseason. Bringing him over to the Eagles, he has just changed and really blossomed into this new athlete. Because remember, when he was with the Giants, it pretty much was Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. But now you've got an actual passing game. Now you've got that threat with A.J. Brown. It's making Saquon Barkley a better player. And you and I were talking earlier about how on the bench towards the end of the game when they were starting to sit people, Coach Sirianni goes over to him and said, hey, you got 13 yards. Do you want to go in, kind of set that record? And he's like, no, let the young guys do it. And I think it just speaks so much to his mindset as an athlete and what's really important to him and how he is a team player.
I feel like I need to, at the very least, have a little bit of a rant about the New York Giants at this point.
Talk to me.
Because Saquon Barkley should be a New York Giant right now. He wanted to be a New York Giant. The organization didn't put up enough money. We saw Bill Belichick, over the last couple of days, being like, he should be a Giant. They should have just given him that couple $1 million more. They got a guard instead. Now, why did they not get Saquon Barkley? It's because they put up so much money for their, what they thought, franchise quarterback in Daniel Jones, a player that they benched towards the end because of the last game against the Eagles, because the offense needed more, I'll paraphrase, pep, right? They put in Drew Lock instead. So what's happened there is that over the course of the last 2 seasons, you have decided to put so much money into your quarterback, who has so far proven the wrong decision. Instead of your running back, he's moved to your rivals, the rivals in the same division, who's just destroyed you at your stadium. Now, New York Giants fans, there are some fans out there who at that stadium were just hammering Saquon Barkley, booing Saquon Barkley. Now, I'm sure that there were a lot that weren't, don't get me wrong. New York Giants fans, what are you doing? This is my message to you. What are you doing? What are you playing at? Come on, it is not Saquon Barkley's fault. Barkley wanted to be a New York Giant. We saw on the Hard Knocks over in the offseason, he said explicitly, I want to be a New York Giant. He said that to the general manager. He ends up being a Philadelphia Eagle because they don't put up enough money for him. New York Giants, I don't know what's going on there. But if I'm a New York Giants fan right now, first of all, don't be annoyed at Saquon Barkley, be annoyed at your organization. And B, I just don't know how to feel about being a fan of the New York Giants.
Yeah.
Tranquilo,
mi amigo.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I need to chill out. Can have a sip of water
all right.
now.
Just breathe. Just breathe. Don't
I'm
worry.
not a New York Giants fan. I just feel frustrated at the way my voice is going because I'm so agitated about this. I just feel frustrated about the way that New York Giants fans have been treated over the past couple of years and how select New York Giants fans have treated Saquon Barkley when he was playing back at their home stadium. Okay, let's move on to the matchup of the week then, Phoebe. 2 teams I think are a really interesting place right now where they both want to be considered contenders, Super Bowl contenders, but they haven't necessarily shown that so far. The San Francisco 49ers versus the Dallas Cowboys. I'll go straight into it. Season over for whoever loses.
Ooh. I mean, I guess the season almost feels like it's over for these teams in a lot of ways anyways. The 49ers haven't been able to put consecutive back-to-back wins, again, just coming off of a loss last weekend against the Chiefs. And then the Cowboys, who really got decimated by the Lions in a historic loss, again at home. They're off a bye week. You hope McCarthy is able to pull something together to find a solution. Again, we talked about the trade deadline, but they've got no defensive line. You're hoping Micah Parsons is back, Dexter Lawrence, guys like that who can make a really big difference. But if we're really looking at it, they're 0-3 at home. They're 3-0 on the road. And you're almost just hoping that a road game will help them inject some life into them.
And they've been decimated multiple times, actually, the Dallas Cowboys this season as well. And they're a team, and we've spoken about this on the rundown before, they're a team that are in that position where it's almost, this is it this season. For a lot of the players, a lot of the coaching staff as well, potentially. I mean, we have spoken about it before. The San Francisco 49ers, they're in a spot as well where they've already got a losing record. This is unprecedented in the Kyle Shanahan era, especially the Brock Purdy era, really, for the San Francisco 49ers. Are we just thinking, well, that's that then for the Super Bowl? Are we thinking that they're even contenders, either of them, anyway?
I don't know if they were considered. I don't think the Cowboys were considered contenders coming into the season. I think you look at what happened in the offseason, which wasn't much, right? In terms of they were one of the teams that did the least in terms of offseason transactions. Then you look at the fact that, literally right before their first game of the season, they paid Dak all this money. So now you've got Dak and CeeDee Lamb, who have the highest paid on that team, but there's no other supporting cast. And you're paying people who have almost reached their ceiling. Dak last year had pretty much an MVP level season. CeeDee Lamb is, if I'm being honest, not looking as you would expect your number one receiver to look. I saw some of the routes that he was running against the Lions, and they just weren't crisp or sharp. And you think if you're that guy, you're getting paid to get those first downs, you really have to be firing on all cylinders. And I don't feel that from him. And it doesn't help. You don't have a run game. And defensively, you really don't have a run defense whatsoever. So you've got all these issues going on with them. Brandon Aubrey is the best thing about your team, ultimately, in terms of the kicker. And then you look at the 49ers.
State of affairs, though, you know. I love kicking, but if your best player is a kicker, then that's not a good position to be in.
Not at all, but he is.
He's great. He's great. You know, Brandon Aubrey, great player. I'm not saying otherwise, but you know, at the same time, you want to be confident in your offensive pieces, and I don't feel like Dallas Cowboys fans are right now. Well, San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan not happy with how his quarterback played in the last game. Brock Purdy, who hasn't been playing badly actually this season, but there were some really questionable interceptions, questionable throws from Brock Purdy in that loss against the Kansas City Chiefs. Must win for them. What happens if they don't?
Yeah, and I think just to kind of look at the last game in particular, you know, Purdy did struggle, right? They were sending pressure. Steve Spagnuolo is always going to find a way to get after you. I felt like the first half of the game was stagnant, ultimately, from a play calling perspective. And then you go to the second half, and you start to see some of that life that Shanahan brings to the table, the motions, the naked boots, the throwbacks, things like that. That's what helps Purdy. You know, at the moment, he's having to throw into such tight windows that his decision-making has to be absolutely spot on, and he has to be throwing with anticipation. You look at this matchup, I mean, they have the opportunity to run the ball. Jordan Mason got stuffed quite a lot last weekend, so their running game wasn't the same. They're saying maybe CMC after the bye week, but you know, you don't want to be just waiting on that. Who's going to be healthy coming into this game? And you could genuinely see the frustration on Shanahan's face.
I mean, I think this is going to be the season, unless something changes. This is going to be the season where we look back at the San Francisco 49ers and we think, well, no Brandon Ayuk for the majority of it. We don't know how Deebo Samuel is going to be. You know, you mentioned Juwan Jennings earlier on, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, even Jordan Mason was doubtful for the last game, pulled through. This is a decimated team in terms of players.
They're tired, genuinely.
Yeah.
Look at what they had to go through last year, right? You make it to the Super Bowl. You have the 7th longest game in Super Bowl history. It gives you a short season. So not only have you played a ton of football, now you've got this smaller window to have to work through, and then you have to go fire it all up again. I mean, no wonder they're injured and tired, and you almost just think, can they do it again? And at the moment, it doesn't feel like it. We know things can change, but they've got to get healthy. Both these teams have to get healthy if they want to even have a chance at being successful and making it to the playoffs.
I just want a quick shout out to another matchup that I think would have been particularly interesting, but it looks like Jaden Daniels, the Washington Commanders quarterback, he has a rib injury, so it doesn't look like he's going to be able to play, but I would have Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick, versus Jaden Daniels, the rookie quarterback who's been playing so well in the Bears and the Commanders. That would have been tasty to me. Okay, let's move on to the extra points. Let's talk about the NFC North, Phoebe. Potentially the best division in football, because this is, I mean, we just mentioned the Chicago Bears right there. The Chicago Bears are potentially the worst team in that division, and they're still a good team. You've got up until last weekend, the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. You've got the Detroit Lions, who beat the Vikings, and the Green Bay Packers, who have shown some talent as well. I mean, I mentioned this yesterday to a Green Bay Packers fan, actually, how amazing it must feel to be part of this division, which is going to have so much competitiveness. It's going to be entertainment for hopefully years and years. But at the same time, anger and annoyance, because it's going to be so hard for your team to get through year after year, because the NFC North is just superb so far.
Yeah, it's stacked with talent. I mean, this is what we love to see. We used to find this in the AFC, where you have those incredible quarterbacks, who run the league, and now this is the most competitive division in all of the NFL, and no one would have predicted that coming into it. It was great to see the Lions-Vikings game last weekend, because really it was a huge test for the Vikings. How do we fare against a team that is consistent? How do we fare if we are having to come from behind at some point? They had some answers to the questions. I think Kevin O'Connell did a really nice job of managing Sam Darnold throughout. And the Lions are just proving to us that actually they really are a Super Bowl contender. And they're not only phenomenal on offense, Jared Goff having another great day, connecting with Amon-Ra St. Brown, putting together a 2-minute drive. But Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, that safety duo, they are the reason that you might really get to the Super Bowl and could potentially win it. Because when you've got a duo like that, I mean, they're unstoppable. And then you've got offense and then special teams, some questionable things early on going for that fake punt. I don't know if you need to do that.
Oh, yeah, but that is so Dan Campbell.
I know, but you were.
It is.
But, I mean, look, if you look at you can tell how competitive it was when both teams were using timeouts within the first quarter. You've got I think they were 3 minutes in, and they're going for a fake punt on their side. I mean, it just goes to show how much it means to them. But I think they bring so much excitement. I love what Ben Johnson's doing. That was really the battle of Ben Johnson and Brian Flores, and it was fantastic as a fan.
So I heard somebody the other day say, and I quote, "I can see all 4 teams make the playoffs." I mean, is that unprecedented? I feel like it might be unprecedented. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it is unprecedented, but it could potentially happen. I mean, you look at what the matchups are going to be going forwards. I really think that they could make it, or if you're looking at maybe the top 3 end up getting through. But I think it would be exciting. I mean, to think that none of these teams are really counted as playoff contenders. You know, that the Bears would get there. Green Bay was unsure a little bit. Vikings, nobody even thought Sam Darnold would get this far. So, yeah, I think that would be phenomenal to see. And it goes to show these quarterbacks, these are the future. This is their next 10 years. You know, you're looking at your Caleb Williams, your Jordan Loves.
And Jared Goff is potentially the best quarterback in the league as well. Which matchup? Because I kind of think it does seem likely that we might see two of these teams play each other again in the playoffs. Which one do you think is the most likely?
Oh, I think it's going to be, you might actually get another Lions-Vikings rematch. I mean, otherwise, I would love to see the Packers playing as well. Perhaps one of those kind of powerhouse teams that move a little different to them.
I would love a Bears-Packers just purely because of it'd just be
nostalgia.
It would, nostalgia, the fun, the rivalry, it would be brilliant. Okay, let's also talk about Deshaun Watson, the Cleveland Browns quarterback who snapped his Achilles at the weekend as well in the game. It's a tough thing, I think, for the Cleveland Browns organization and the fans, because if we're just speaking on the field, Deshaun Watson hasn't been great. And it might be, if we're just talking injury aside, it might be potentially a good thing for the Cleveland Browns to have another quarterback be under center. Jameis Winston could come in. Do you think that the Browns might weirdly be more competitive now if Deshaun Watson's not playing?
I honestly think that they might be. And you're right, it is a very odd situation. I think it's kind of delicate in a lot of ways. You don't ever wish ill will on anybody, from an injury perspective, still, family and whatnot. But I do think that we saw what they did last year with Flacco, right? And how the team rallied, how they had incredible pass catchers around them, what they were able to do. I think they've shown success with that. I think in a way they almost have needed a spark, right? And maybe that is Jameis Winston. If we're being totally honest at the whole situation, you said it, Deshaun Watson has not been the same quarterback that they anticipated him being. Keeping in mind, he missed 11 games last year. This year, he's not been as mobile. We've only probably a handful of times seen him do those Deshaun Watson things we've been used to. And you think about why they brought him into this league was into this division because of what he was able to do. But when he was with the Texans, that was in a time where the Texans were kind of running the board there. The AFC South was not as competitive as it is now. And so is who they got really the guy they wanted? I don't know. I don't know if he'll ever be the same guy again. And
do you think he sort of gets overhyped?
I think so. Genuinely, I do think so, because we've not seen that same Deshaun Watson since he was in Texas. And so now you look at your situation. Could this be an opportunity where, hey, we can find some sort of clause in the contract, whatever that looks like, to just say, hey, let's cut ties, move our separate directions, and you have to put your team first at some point, right? Because everyone sees what's going on, and Coach Stefanski, he can't lose the locker room. And we've seen some things early on, Joel Bitonio, the offensive line, Deshaun Watson offering to help him up, and he's saying to get out of here. There's obviously some friction within that team, and they feel it too, right? They know who he is. They know his past. So you can't play blind to it either.
After the loss to the Bengals, Browns players Jameis Winston and Myles Garrett spoke about the fans' reaction to Watson's injury.
The way I was raised, I was taught to love no matter the circumstances, especially for people who do right by you. I'm grateful that I had a chance to serve the son, but I am very upset with the reaction to a man that has had the world against him for the past 4 years, and he put his body and life on the line for this city every single day, regardless of your perception, regardless of what you thought should happen with him. He committed every single day that I've been here to be the best that he can be for this team. I will never pull on a man when he's down, but I will be the person to lift him up. And that, all of us have unique experiences. All of us have circumstances, conditions, and facts that we face every single day. And I pride myself in being a man of increase and being a man that wants the best out of everybody. But Deshaun was treated badly, and now he has to overcome another obstacle. So I'm going to support him. I'm going to lift him up, and I'm going to be there for him because I see the way he fights. I see the way that he works, and I know who he is as a person and as an NFL quarterback. And that's all I have to say to address him.
No one deserves that. I've seen him work his ass off to, get back here, and put a smile on his face. Man does pretty much everything right. He's been a model citizen through college and most of the pros.
And that's one of the stories that's trending on talkSPORT.com right now. Let's talk about some more of them. Delighted to welcome talkSPORT's US sports editor, Paul Prendeville. Paul, now that story's been trending. Those last remarks by Jameis Winston, Myles Garrett, I don't know, is strange the right word?
Unnecessary was kind of what I thought. I was on duty on Sunday, and so the whole Cleveland Brown experience has been kind of trending for us all season. I think people are interested in it for a number of reasons. And the fact that he went off in the game, I think just brought the whole issue to a head. Where I think the players could have kind of maybe done themselves and everybody a favour is just sort of stop short. We all get that you have to defend a teammate, and also
no one wants to see an injury.
No one wants to see an injury, but there are times when something has happened and you kind of just know when to stop short. I think without getting too deep into the weeds, that's where I think the players maybe kind of could have been better. Let's put it that way.
Because it kind of feels like, as you say, we can't ignore everything off the field with Jameis Winston, can we?
No,
with Deshaun Watson, of course.
Yeah, with Deshaun Watson, I think we all know it's a story that's been covered. It's not nice, but it's a story that's there. If we're talking about it from a pure sporting point of view, his quarterback play's not been good enough. So, I angled the story at the weekend that maybe this gives Cleveland the way out, despite Kevin Stefanski continuing to defend Watson in terms of his play. But now there's an opportunity to move on, and I think the players could have kind of just gone about it a better way. It just didn't sit very well, I think.
Let's go on to some other stories that have been trending as well. This Sunday, before the Chiefs faced off against the 49ers, Tom Brady made a surprise appearance via hologram. Paul, what's going on?
I feel like Phoebe should tell us a little bit more about this from her TV background.
Yeah, have you ever been a hologram on TV, Phoebe?
I have not. I've seen the boxes, but I've not yet made it to see hologram in real life. It's very cool, though. Technology is pretty phenomenal, what we're able to do nowadays.
So hologram.
Yeah, so look, I think generally there was interest in what Tom Brady was going to be doing this weekend after the whole Raiders kind of ownership part of the week kind of was confirmed. So I was kind of prepared for Tom Brady maybe getting a little bit of stick, or kind of Tom Brady was maybe doing something that the new terms of his kind of ownership wouldn't let him to do. And I was kind of watching the broadcast, and then all of a sudden, via the magic of green screen, Tom Brady pops up and is talking with the studio guys. Look, it's kind of a bit of fun in terms of the way it was sold, but also it was a really cool interview as part of that coverage. Tom sat down with Patrick Mahomes, and kind of that also was kind of part of the story. He was sort of chatting to Mahomes at the Chiefs facility over on the West Coast when they were over there. And it was a really good interview. Don't know if anyone saw it, Patrick Mahomes was talking about why his dad bod is good for insulation. So, because he was taking hits. And then I think what kind of transpired from that is Patrick Mahomes then went and ran down
bulldozed.
Yes, absolutely nailed him.
In the end zone.
Yeah.
I remember watching that, being like, that's kind of embarrassing for the 49ers.
Mustafa owned it really well on socials afterwards. I don't know if you saw it.
No, what did he say?
Kind of a really cool meme, as if to say, not going to lie, I'm getting it.
Welcome
basically.
to the NFL moment.
Yeah, that is a welcome to the NFL moment. Paul, Dak Prescott's logo on his Cowboys jersey is getting a lot of attention as well. Can you explain what exactly going on there?
So this is one of those things that I think randomly crops up when you kind of least expect it. I think maybe a little while ago we wrote a story about why Dak and a number of other players have got the Walter Payton Man of the Year patch on their trophy. And I don't know, maybe someone spotted it somewhere and Google does its thing and all of a sudden people are looking for, why does Dak Prescott have a different patch on his jersey? And it's really simple. It's because he's a Walter Payton Man of the Year and players who get the award are allowed to wear the patch. So I was really sort of surprised, but pleased as well to see that sort of stuff spiking, because it kind of gives us a bit of a kind of wider steer on what people are talking about. We know that the live environment, whether it's Deshaun Watson, whether it's Tom Brady, can give us something interesting to talk about, but kind of throwing something a little bit left field into the mix always keeps us on our toes.
It's cool to be a Walter Payton Man of the Year as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Phoebe, this is a massive thing for NFL players.
Oh, it's a huge honor. I mean, there's not many awards that you can win within the NFL, and when the NFL is so much about community and CSR and what you're doing, I mean, this is massive to be able to earn that and to be able to have it on your jersey like that. You know, and I think it's very cool that it's being researched as well, because people want to know about those personal interest stories. They want to learn more about the human underneath the helmet. So I think it's phenomenal that that's trending.
And that's a really interesting point, right? Because we're finding there's so much more interest now. Maybe it's the UK audience growing and also sort of reaching a wider audience as well with what we do. People are like interested in who they're married to, what they do in their spare time. And from our point of view, as we grow our NFL audience at talkSPORT, it's kind of knowing what people want to read and what they're interested in. And certainly now, the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, as it comes round, in a few months' time, will be something we take a really close look at, and maybe what the players are doing and the charities that are close to their heart.
Yeah, Phoebe, from your perspective, actually, because you obviously have spent so much time with NFL players, this is something that, community service and giving back to the cities, not just the cities where they are or the states where they are, but where they went to college, where they grew up. This is something that it's not just this one guy, Dak Prescott, that does it. This is a thing that, so many players do.
Yeah, and they were all honored at NFL Honors last year. I'm Deion Dawkins with the Bills or Harrison Phillips with the Vikings, guys that I've been able to be around and learn from as well. And they're so passionate about it. I think a lot of these athletes, they want to make sure that the lives that they've led, some of them quite tumultuous growing up, they want to try and make sure they're giving as many opportunities to the younger people to help change their trajectory, give them places to go with real objectives and intention, and they know that they can change lives. They have a platform. A lot of them have foundations now where they're able to help these young people who may be homeless, not be able to afford meals, or help them on their journeys where they might want to try and be the next Deion Dawkins. So this element of giving back and sending the elevator back down is really plays a big role within their hearts.
Well done, Dak Prescott. Well done, Dak Prescott. I mean, that's probably the only time that someone said that to him this season, let's be honest. That's all from us this week. Thank you to Phoebe and Paul. And don't forget, if you want more of this, then make sure you go and subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel, talkSPORT Endzone. We'll see you next week.